Welcome everyone to our Gentian update, where we share things that are hot and are on top of mind right now. So with that, we'd like to share the fact that it's spring. I'll do a quick go big for myself, which is to begin in gratitude. I'm very excited, very happy and grateful for spring, crocuses, those little flowers that emerged first as they emerged 2 weeks ago, that my daughter is learning and failing make me a better human being, to be a better parent, more patient, more helpful, more understanding, which is great. She's had some wonderful accomplishments, and they come often from times of trying to do something and learning that didn't work. So that's been absolutely wonderful. Also for my wife, organizing chaos. I'll head back to Ken and Zach real quick, but with that, I'd like to actually bring the housekeeping to our wonderful colleague, Michael Mann.
Morning, everyone. To start off our housekeeping, we want to let you know that Q2 review invites have been emailed. If you've received one, please open up that email and schedule your review through the included Calendly link. The tax filing deadline has been extended to May 17th for both federal and Wisconsin. You want to make sure that you check your own state if you do not live in Wisconsin, as these act independently of federal, to make sure that your tax filing has also been extended. That extension also goes for IRA and Roth contributions for 2020. However, the date to pay quarterly estimates was not extended, so that'll remain the same. This Friday, April 2nd, our office and the market is closed for Good Friday, but Gentian is sponsoring live at the Mequon Public Market, and there will be a musical performance from 6:30 to 8:30 by the Christopher Project. No relation to our own Chris Doughty. On Wednesday, April 14th, will be our next bi-weekly update, and we'll be starting at a new time. Next, on April 14th, our bi-weekly update will be at 9 a.m., so mark your calendars for that. On Wednesday, April 21st, will be the next Gentian's Women's Group, and on Wednesday, April 28th, will be the Health and Wealth Series Part 2 with Michelle Norris. This will be a health question and answer. So anybody who's going to be attending, please send us your questions ahead of time so that we can address them during the webinar. And with that, I will send it back to Chris.
Thank you, Mike. Any of you guys getting sick of what you see on screen right now? Anybody? So there's some rumors we're about to get off the mask mandate. So what I'm actually excited about is we can get rid of these and we can start being more like this. So just fun and goofy. At any rate, I love goofiness. I love being a little bit of humor. It's trying to lift the mood up a little bit. But with that, Ken, how about your go big?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Great to be here for everybody. My go big in gratitude is healthcare workers. We got our first COVID shots recently, so pretty happy about that. Also grateful for collisions. I saw one of the husbands of our team members when I was coming out of the doctor's office after my shot, and I couldn't realize, and I couldn't believe how happy I was to see another human being and actually be able to talk to them about things. So it was really great. It was back to what we call collisions when you run into people out in public, and it just felt so great. It felt like so wanted. So I'm just grateful for seeing people and having conversations with them, believe it or not. So something so simple and so pure, I'm absolutely grateful for it. So
thank you. How about Zach? How about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Along similar lines, today I'm just very grateful for the hope that vaccines are giving people. From conversations with you, conversations from others, it seems like the accessibility to the vaccines have been opening up and people are more comfortable going on vacations or finally seeing their family if they haven't been. And I'm just extremely grateful for that and for all of you and for them as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Zach. I appreciate that. So as I go forward here, give me a moment. I got all sorts of stuff all over the place. But what I'd like to do today is kind of begin a focus with a couple of different ideas. I think as we look for things today, I think I wanted to do one quick anti-go big. My anti-go big, if you want to face it that way, is going to be anti-go big for allergies and daylight savings time. When daylight savings time occurs, I'm tired for almost 2 weeks. I get home and I'm tired at like 5 o'clock, and I think, man, this is crazy. This is horrible. But actually, what I find is allergies. I've talked to many of you, and many of you said, I've never experienced this before. 3 weeks ago, they started feeling tired. They started feeling stuffy and maybe a scratchy throat. So strong allergy season. So I'm going to do my anti-go big for that as well. At any rate, I appreciate that. Thank you all. What I realized over time is allergies might be a rite of passage. Kind of fun. Anyway, welcome today. Good to see you all. There's a bunch of fun things we'll go through. We'll go through some different pieces. I know Ken, Zach, and Mike have a couple of wonderful things to throw your way as well and to teach you. We've got a lot going on here. A lot of people are looking, probably the biggest focus is on taxes. It's really looking at where are we? We might go up to a higher tax bracket. What they've really said is if you're under $400,000 in income, which is almost all of us, it's really not going to be a big issue. If you make more than 400,000, it is going to be a little bit of an increase. If you make over $1 million, it could be a significant increase. So that's really what that's aimed at. We'll talk more about it as more details come out. Right now, there's a lot of supposition. So you know what I like about supposition? It's like trying to predict the future. There's going to be a $2 trillion plan for infrastructure. So those potholes in your, I'm sure Joe Biden was thinking the potholes just outside your house when he was talking about that. So part of the $2 trillion is maybe going to give you some stimulus money so you can go out and buy some asphalt and fill the potholes in your own street as well. I'm not sure what the plan will be, but there'll be a big one coming there as well. Those are two big economic things. There's a bunch of other pieces, but I thought I would throw those out there as well. And what I realize is a lot of times, and you're hearing a lot of criticism lately, you're hearing a lot of the plans or this or that. What's interesting to me is I realized a long time ago, never criticize someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes. That way, when you criticize them, you'll be a mile away and you'll have their shoes. So that's the way I look at criticism today. It's one of those things that you can use as well. But, I think I've heard a lot of that lately, and I'm just patient. I really don't criticize many people anymore because it doesn't do them a lot of good. If it's helpful, that's great. But I thought that'd be a great way to introduce that as well. One thing we saw this week is interesting as well is that in a recent nationwide study, 74% of parents admit to having helped their adult children pay for living expenses or reduce debt. Now, that's interesting. But what we had is a few questions which were like, let's go back 2 generations. How many of your parents helped you with your living situation? Let's go back even a generation before that. How many of your parents were helped by their parents? This is a radical change, most likely. Now it's something where people will actually sacrifice their retirement. We've seen it to help their adult children. Where if you go back a generation or two, I like to ask the question, did your parents do that? And the answer was absolutely not. So I'm not sure what changed in this generation, but something has. It's not good or bad. It just is. But it's an interesting piece, and it sparked a lot of conversation and some really heated opinions amongst different people, which is interesting to hear as well. Well, they need it. You should. And I said, well, you shouldn't. We're making a soft generation. There's all sorts of people talking about all sorts of stuff. But that was a great piece of information we heard recently that may spark some conversation for you when talking with us as well. But we know a lot of you have helped them when things are dire. But it's just an interesting piece that we'd heard, we've seen, we noticed, but there's actually data out there showing it as well. One thing I think I'd like to say as well is, before I go into anything else, let me go ahead and maybe jump to Zach when it comes to the markets. There's a few other things I'll say as we go through. Actually, before I actually jump to Zach, I'm going to change the script up real quick. So one thing last year at this time, I was really into a masterclass by Billy Collins. He's a poet laureate of the United States. So it was interesting. I wrote a bunch of poetry, and actually, as we go through, there's a poem that I really, really love, and I think it's a good one as I've seen by a wonderful, wonderful poet. But it's as I look out the window on this crisp spring day, the ground is peppered with sunlight as the clouds whisk by, shadows floating back and forth, the cloud factory pumping out shapes in the sky, shadow makers. As I look over the verdant outdoor carpet, I see of brown giving way to the green. The crowd bustles as they return from their homes down south. They greet each other as if they've not seen each other in a long time. They fight for territory. They gorge themselves on an earthly buffet. They build their summer homes. They sing their songs that announce the season. Every so often, they all disappear when danger flies by. It seems like they're courting and looking for some bunny. They lay their Easter blue eggs and raise their young, who will join them on their journey home. That's a poem I really, really enjoy by a wonderful, wonderful poet. Oh, wait, no, that's wrong. I wrote that. So a few things I was inspired by. I thought it was a good point. I happened to just see that from last year. It was one of those memories that popped up. I thought I'd share that with you. I know it's not investments or anything, but sometimes it's nice just to share things as you do that. So if anybody's interested in those, maybe the 3 or 4 people that are, because I think that's probably all that are. I've got some other poems I can send you in a collection at some point as well. But with that, let's get back to the main purpose of this, which is getting to more of the markets and the investments and what's going on with your money. Zach.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Threw a little change up on me there, but good thing I kept my weight back. That's a little bit of baseball reference for opening day coming up this weekend, and looking forward to that as well. But end of the quarter is always an exciting time for us. we do a lot of screening of our investments and also just the markets in general. We do it weekly, monthly to make sure we're on the right track, but really quarterly, we dive in deeper. So we're really looking forward to what Q1 has in store for us and what we find. Also sharing that with you in reviews and on some of these webinars as well. Today, just going to briefly touch on where we're at year to date as far as equity goes, index, fixed income on the Treasury, and just the aggregate bond index. And then also just a main takeaway from today again is why we diversify. Have another great reason on why we diversify and continue to moving forward. So on the market index update, the S&P 500 year to date as of market close yesterday is up 5.39%. The NASDAQ is 1.22. The Dow Jones 8.04. And the Russell 2000, which again tracks small and mid cap companies, is 11.19% positive year to date. If we're moving over to the fixed income side of things, we've been getting a lot of questions there. We hear a lot about interest rates on TV and the effect that it has on bonds as well. The 1-year Treasury year to date return is 0.06% with a current yield of 0.08. The 10-year Treasury year to date return is negative 6.37% with a current yield of 1.66%. The aggregate bond index, which tends to be the most common index to track all bonds on the US side of things, year to date as of market close yesterday, according to the Wall Street Journal, minus 3.36%. Some people are surprised to see the negative numbers and larger than normal negative numbers for bonds, because traditionally bonds has been viewed as safe or kind of weather the storms of the stock market potentially at times. But we just have to be cautious of the maturity and the duration of our bonds. So bond prices work in opposite of interest rates. The longer the maturity and the duration, the higher the risk. So if we were to share a 30-year Treasury, an example, it would be double-digit year-to-date negative return. So kind of our major takeaway here for today, as well as another reason why we diversify. We often, and each time you've pretty much heard us why we diversify the different asset classes: large cap, mid cap, small cap, also diversifying our different type of bonds. But within that, we also diversify and make sure we're diversified between different market sectors. The top performing sectors year to date: energy, financials, and industrials. The last 3 years, top performing sectors are information technology, consumer discretionary, and communication services. The bottom 3 for the last 3 years are energy, financials, and utilities. So pretty much completely inverse this year from what the last 3 years were. We never know what the next month, next year, next 3 years bring, but that's why we have elements of all of it and don't have our eggs all in one basket, assuming that technology is going to be the way forward, or financials, or any other different type of sector. But with that, I'll send it back to Chris.
So, Zach, what I heard from you today was we really need to know about maturity and duration. That sounds like something as we're approaching Easter here, as you're going to gather with some of your family. You want to know about their maturity and the duration of time you'll have to spend with them. So that's kind of what I got from what you're talking about.
Or we can go through here for 45 more minutes and really work on the math on it. I know everyone would really enjoy that portion of it.
Exactly. So you can have that conversation. Well, thank you for sharing this about maturity and duration, because when you said that, I directly took it to heart, thinking you're talking about me for sure. Oh, bonds. Good. At any rate, no, I appreciate that as well. Maturity and duration are super important. Actually, Mike, I think Michael Mann, one of our wonderful technical analysts here, had a wonderful piece on. We've had some questions on Bitcoin and non-fungible tokens. Just this week, Visa announced that they're going to be actually settling some transactions in Bitcoin coming up. It's kind of an interesting thing to say, might it be used in the mainstream? It might be. Remember, when they announced that, it's very small, very individual transactions. But then something came up about non-fungible tokens. So my thought first when I heard it was, those are those tokens you use when they don't really work. You actually made them and they were made up to put in the subway, like you drop it doesn't really work. But apparently Mike said that wasn't what it was. So let's actually find out, what is a non-fungible token, Mike?
All right, thanks, Chris. So a non-fungible token is kind of a new investment commodity. It is a crypto, so it trades on blockchain, much like cryptocurrency does, except for it is a unique piece of data. And what I mean by unique piece of data is, think about artwork. Think about the Mona Lisa. The very original Mona Lisa is worth a ton of money, but anybody can go get a print for much cheaper. So these unique pieces of data are the unique Mona Lisas of whatever has been created. So there are one of one, and that what gives them value. It's been coming up a lot as NFL players specifically have been in making headlines with investing in these non-fungible tokens and selling them to generate some revenue. Rob Gronkowski of the Super Bowl champions Tampa Bay Buccaneers recently made $1.6 million selling 4 unique cards, essentially, that were traded as NFTs on this blockchain. So non-fungible tokens, it's something new that you're going to be hearing a little bit more about. And just remember, it is just a unique digital piece of art in a sense. And with that,
we're now selling things and we're collecting things that aren't really things on Earth, or they're just basically in a mindset or on a blockchain, which is kind of interesting to think about. You can make $1 million creating something that other people would buy that isn't really anything, but it's in a digital space. So that's what I heard. The Mona Lisa today is actually worth about $1 billion, if you wonder. So that's just the number that's worth today. FYI. Michael, thank you tremendously for keeping us up to date. Again, we're going to do some of those things like keeping you up to date, keeping you hip and cool with your kids and grandkids as well. You know, some of the things we'll see. But thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that. Ken, how about yourself? What's going on with some of the planning in the markets? We've seen a lot going on with tax. We've seen a lot going on with some of the different ramifications of what might happen in the with planning when it comes to, should I be selling something? Should I not? Should I be converting to Roth? Should I not? Will this affect me for taxes? What are all the changes that are going to happen? And so you can answer all those in about 3 minutes, right, Ken?
Yeah, right. So, well, I have a few tokens, like in addition to what Mike was talking about there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the markets. Read some articles from BlackRock, which is a mutual fund company, an investment company that puts out a lot of data for us to read. They do a great job of that. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some planning ideas around March Madness. But tomorrow, spring is in the air, everybody. Spring is in the air, and with that brings Brewers baseball. So we have some great friends, some clients actually that work for the Brewers organization. And I asked them, what are they most excited about this year? And they said that the clubhouse right now has a ton of energy in it right now. And so that's a good thing heading into a season, because last year was a little low energy, a little mundane in the clubhouse. But this year, everyone's excited, ready to go. So it should make for some pretty good Brewers baseball this year. They also said, gear up, wear your stuff tomorrow. Tomorrow's a big day, a big day for Milwaukee, basically. So Brewers baseball starts tomorrow. So hopefully everybody tunes in and watches the first game there tomorrow.
Hey, Ken, what do they attribute that to? Do they put in like some new outlets or something?
Yeah, new outlets, a lot more, like quad outlets in there as well. They all have their Teslas being charged up right now as well, so.
Nice. I'm sorry,
so
I digress.
A lot of energy flowing around in the clubhouse right now. So absolutely. So a couple things here on the markets. I'm going to give you a little fun tidbit here. I was talking to a client recently, and they do a lot of lending through a bank. And right now, hay exports are reaching an all-time high in the U.S. Why is that? And I said, well, why is that? And she said, well, because the Chinese basically are a huge importer of hay, believe it or not. Why is that? Because the middle class is getting wealthier in China. And when the middle class gets wealthier, they eat and drink more dairy. Sounds very simple, but it is the food chain basically, right? So cattle need to eat hay to produce more dairy and things of that nature. So I thought that was a really interesting factoid. Didn't necessarily see that one coming, because we don't watch the bean market, the soybean market, the hay market quite, every single day. But there is markets for all these things. And I find it very interesting that U.S. is exporting basically hay at an all-time high right now. So the Fed is also committed to keeping interest rates low. I read that from BlackRock this morning. And they're staying behind the curve on inflation, which is something is opposite of what we do for all of you. We try to stay ahead of the curve on planning ideas and things of that nature. But the Fed is keeping interest rates basically artificially low to help stimulate the economy right now. But inflation will be something that we'll be talking about eventually as well. When it comes to account balance pegging, maybe there's a different word for that, but I've talked to a lot of you, and right now you know what your number is in your head right now, your investments and things that you have out there, and this is simply just a hypothetical. But if we have our accounts pegged at $1 million, and that's what we know we have today, it's not necessarily when the markets go down. It's not necessarily if, it's when the markets go down. That we have to be able to understand that roller coaster ride. Some people on the roller coaster love to put their hands up and go down the hill and are okay with it all. Some people need Dramamine before they jump on a roller coaster. right? So this is all relative to who you are as a person. But what we've learned over a long period of time of doing this, let's just say hypothetically we have $1 million pegged in our mind. Anytime the markets go or anytime the accounts go below that $1 million mark, we feel like we're losing money. And that's not actually the case because we have a lot of gains built up at this point in time. So it is necessary for $1 million hypothetically to go to $800,000 hypothetically before we go back up to say 1.3 hypothetically. That's the roller coaster we have to go on. It's fortunate and unfortunate at the same time, but those who can understand and really take that roller coaster and embrace it and embrace the speed and all that stuff that goes into the turns and everything, those will end up with a higher account balance most likely at the end of it all. So I just want to bring up, we call it account balance pegging, basically. On the planning side of things, March Madness is in effect right now. Everyone has their brackets. Maybe some are busted at this point in time. Maybe some are doing well. But I'm going to bring up the triple threat. That's a basketball term when you're in your triple threat position. HSAs, health savings account. It's a triple tax break. Pre-tax going in, tax deferral, and tax-free coming out if used properly for medical expenses. That's a triple tax break. Not many investment vehicles offer triple tax breaks like that. So take advantage of that if you have one. Make sure you get your contributions in. You still can do it for 2020 if you haven't already. Also, college planning. Since March Madness is in the air, everyone has their brackets. College planning. So think about students that are going in. Maybe it's your kids or your grandkids, and there's a college plans that are out there. If they're going into college later this fall, the markets are really good right now. We need to take a look at those college plans and understand, should we be selling some stocks potentially right now to help fund the tuition payment that's coming up here in the later fall. So let's have those conversations if you have college plans that are out there, if you have students that are getting ready and your children are getting ready to go to college and maybe have that expense coming down the road. Let's plan for that together. Also, one last idea, maybe I'll call this the bringing families closer together idea. But with March Madness right now, another client shared this one with me, is the whole family's doing brackets. And there's actually a trophy that got created out of this. So whoever wins within the family gets the traveling trophy, basically for bragging rights in their house, in their room, whatever the case may be. But again, it's another activity to bring your family together, to do something fun together. So I'll call maybe that segment bringing families closer together. So with that being said, I am going to pass it back over to Chris.
Well, I'm not ready, Ken. No, I'm joking. So what I heard from you was that it's a good time to make hay. There's more outlets in the Brewers locker room this year, which is good. People be careful of anchoring and that you're really into madness right now. So that's kind of what I heard, just kind of a brief summary.
You nailed it, Chris. You're spot on. Spot on. Great listening. I like that.
Good. I appreciate that. I just want to say I'd heard that. So a couple things. So I appreciate that. Ken, Zach, Mike, the whole team has really been doing a fantastic job. It's the close of the first quarter of 2021. Really, the theme would be vaccinations and hope. I'm seeing that with people on a constant basis. So vaccinations offer hope. I recently saw an article. I can't tell you where it was an opinion piece, but it showed all the things you could potentially die from if you leave your home or even if you don't leave your home. And it put everything together. What it's trying to do is frame where the coronavirus really was as well, how much we view and how big we view it, and what the actual risk is of dying from it. And it was a really interesting piece. It was way smaller than I thought, just by my own perception. And I'm usually pretty optimistic, but I thought it was an interesting piece as we go through. So I'm going to switch gears. I got a bunch to tell you. I'm going to try to do it in a rapid fire succession here. We had an empowered wealth program. That's something we work on with ourselves to become more gracious, work and be closer and together and better as a team. Because when a team is 5 individuals like fingers, it's very easy to break any one of them. But if you have a fist, we're all together. You can't break us. We actually can do better and better for you when we're closer and closer. So some of the things we've been doing with Empowered Wealth is how do we get closer and closer? How do we realize the things we can get better at? How can we perform better for you as a team? So I want to give you, we're not always just working on numbers, we're working on us so we can be better for you, more patient, understanding, listening, and really understanding who you are, more so than telling you what we want you to hear. So that's something you've been noticing as well. And Empowered Wealth is a great program for that. And I've introduced some of you to it. We'll continue with more of that in the next quarter of the year as well. Another program I was at was Dan Sullivan. Now, there's a really rapid fire discussion for Dan. I'm going to give a few of these things to you because I want to get to the future loop as well. And that's more the future stuff. But Dan made some really interesting comments. I thought that was interesting this time. Like, for instance, the guy reads all the time. He's very intelligent. He's got a big brain, if you will. But he makes statements. He goes, our education system was built for factory workers and still is. We need to change that if we want to get ahead. It was an interesting statement. I thought about this also. When disaster hits, you default to your highest level of preparedness. Think about that. So when this market corrected, we've been preparing you for 25 years if you've been with us that long, right? And a lot of you did the right thing. Only a couple of you had some questions about it, and only one or two of you actually maybe did something you probably in the future may not want to do again. You learned from it. So it's all learning. It's all good. But really interesting. I thought that was a good one. Here's the thing that was most important. I was on a breakout with a woman who is and she said this only in the comments of our 6-hour program. But she said, the biggest thing that I have is I was a burn victim for many, many years. And I no longer call myself a burn victim. I call myself a burn survivor. And so going from burn victim to burn survivor has changed everything in her life. That could be domestic abuse. That could be anything. I say take the word victim out and survivor. I've survived many, many, many things. And I think that's a massive difference that happened for you versus to you. That was a big one as well. A couple things Dan said, which I thought was interesting, and a couple of people said this, was social media brings the unimportant to you in rapid fire so you don't get to pay attention to what is important. I thought that was an interesting one too. One other one is inattentive blindness. What is inattentive blindness? I don't watch the news, and if I don't pay attention to something, I don't know it exists. So I did on Saturday just pop on the news for literally about 3 minutes, and I felt my inner being become much less energetic, become more depressed, more kind of like the wilting flower, if you will. And I saw that just in 3 minutes of the headlines of the news on one of the programs. It was amazing to see. I don't watch that, and I don't watch the way that they present it, but I will pay attention to what's going on in a different way. So it was an interesting piece called Inattentive Blindness. Is sometimes very beneficial to you, but if you don't know what's going on in non-fungible tokens, you're blind to it, right? If you don't know what's going on with XO, you're blind to it. So that inattentive blindness it can be a really good thing, or it can be a bad thing. As Ken likes to say, it's a fine line between them. So kind of wanted to get that one in there for you as well. I appreciate that. One thing we also did in Strategic Coach is we looked at our life. We did it in 25-year increments. And I came up with this incredible thing. So the first 25 years of life are really for learning, experiencing, failing, learning what you want to do, and then moving on. And the second 25 set of years, from 25 to say 50, are about earning money, doing what you have to do to get to the third quarter. And the third quarter, which is 50 to 75, I said, is for experiencing things, teaching, giving back, giving things. And I'd actually say the fourth 25, and I know you're going to smile at me, you're going to go, Chris, come on now. The fourth 25 from 75 to 100, for many of you who are reaching this plateau, is about legacy, teaching, giving to those in your family that you haven't seen or you think could benefit from what you've learned. And that is super important. This to me was one of those realizations, oh my gosh, if you only have 100 years to live, these are 25-year increments. You can be extremely, and you get to live them day by day. But let me tell you, the days go, and I think this comes from Josh Keir, who you all heard from our country thing. The days go, let me try it again. The days go slow, but the years go fast. He said that in a song. I'm like, oh my gosh, Josh, you are absolutely right. He goes, it's just the way life is. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty good one as well. Be careful of tombstone talk. You've heard of this. You may do it. Oh, the people tombstone talk is people telling you how, well, that's all right. I'm past that. I can't do that anymore. I'm too old, or, I'm really close to my grave. So be careful of tombstone talk. Tombstone talk is you putting yourself saying, I'm not able to do stuff. I'm really not going to do this. And if you say you are or aren't often, you're right about that. That was another good one that Dan had brought up as well. One good way to make a massive change is to write something down and say, this is a great way to say it. On this date, this will no longer be true. So let's say that you waste a lot of time doing X, Y, or Z. On this date, April 1st, this will no longer be true. And it's a different way of framing it as well. Remember, I told you you have a to-do list. It's a great way, like a not to-do list. But on this date, this is no longer true. And tell somebody that. On this date, I will no longer use social media. Zach's done that. And it's been an incredible thing for him. So I really appreciate when people have the discipline and grit to do that as well. Last one here, I think I had a couple things. And I told you about this maybe as well. Do you guys ever heard of the word TAWORK? TAWORK, TAWORK? No? That's teamwork without me in it. We as a team need the best of me. So as we looked at this, me being in a team is a very important part of team, because without other people in it, there's really no team. So a good portion was, we talked about what teamwork really is. Come showing up to your best. It's a we, it's not a me. If you fail, we fail, not I fail or not you fail. Pointing the finger at somebody is a very, very, I look at that as that's de-unifying. So we want to say if somebody fails, we fail as a team. So that's just a couple different ideas that we had to share from there. There's a whole bunch more. I just wanted to share a few of those with you as well. The last thing I want to share with you is just the future. There's a couple things that this week were pretty crazy. Let me see. Elon Musk blew up another rocket. That's one when it was coming down. But here's an interesting one. This week, and I'm not going to give the name because it's probably maybe you have to go through compliance or something, but there's actually two major hypersonic airplane companies that are working right now. One believes at the end of this decade, we'll be able to fly from Tokyo to Los Angeles in 3 hours. They believe we'll be able to go anywhere in the world in 3 hours by the end of this decade. They've got private jets coming out 2026 that'll travel 1,000 miles an hour. So that's from here to Florida in 1 hour. So you're looking at these coming up. There's a lot of technology that we're not seeing on a day-to-day basis. But let's say, hey, I really want to go to Florida, but I can only go today and gotta come back today. Well, if it takes you 45 minutes, if you're 5 times supersonic at 16 or 2,000 miles an hour, you could get to Florida in 30 minutes. Might that change where you live? So anyway, I look at technology as not so much the technology that's interesting, because anything you can think of now in the next 10 or 15 years can, will, and may happen. It's what do we do with our mindset to use it rather than get abused by it? We want to use it, not get abused by it. So that's the companies are working with NASA to go up and go what's called almost super or subspatial. So they go up to a level where the Earth rotates and then they come back and re-enter. And it's an amazing, amazing technology. I've heard about it for many years at Abundance 360, but that's coming. I think as well, there's another computer that's going to be 22,000 GPU or something that's going to create an exact model of the Earth. So essentially, we're going to create an exact model of the Earth for anything that we want to do do experiments on the Earth, and also look at what we can do to save ourselves from the issues of carbon technologies and all as well. And unbelievable stuff. We talked about NFT and blockchain and some of the unique pieces of data. I think the last one here I wanted to do on Future Loop, and let me look at my phone because there's so stinking many of these things. I've got to look at them. But there was a good one too where Uber's launching. Hong Kong airport aims to transport passengers for $25. So essentially, for $25, you can hop in a transport and go, say, from here to, let's call it Boulder Junction or something. That for $25 anywhere. That's what they're looking to do. Atmosphere monitoring satellites. They're writing new space flights. There's so many things going on in space. It's not even funny. I said, that's great. We got a lot of problems down here on Earth. I'm glad they're all working in space. I think there's a lot of things you're going to find here. One of the biggest things I've seen and heard lately, we were just on our Center of Influence call, which is attorneys, accountants, all sorts of people we get together with. And the coolest thing is that we were talking as we were moderating this, and we're asking them each one about their industry, from construction to home sales to everything. Each one of their industries is booming, and a lot of them are precursors to what happens in the economy. So I asked one question. I said, all right, stop for a minute, everyone. With what we've all just heard from each other, which way do you think the economy is going to go once this pandemic is over? I said, just show me up or down. Show me with your finger. Every single person pointed up immediately. And this is across 9 or 10 different disciplines. We do this because it's an important piece that you can do. And I want to share one thing with you, one very important thing that one of our centers of influence on the personal insurance side of the equation said. If you have any questions, we can hook you up with her. Her name is Kim. Kim D'Andrea is great. But she said, be careful about your policy right now on your home, because if it burns down and you've got fixed value plus 20%, the wood, for instance, on the building that we built here is now 5 times as expensive as it was 2 years ago. So if you had let's just say you had $50,000 for the wood. Right now, the wood costs $250,000. The trouble is, your home may be at $400,000, and your replacement value is $440,000, but it may cost $640,000 to do it now. It may be a good thing for you to go and check with your insurance agent to make sure you've got replacement, not fixed value plus 20%. There's better terms than what I just said, but that's what came out of that as well. So there's so much, again, we have to do. This was an incredible 2 weeks for the team. They've done an incredible amount of work. We've had a bunch of due diligences that we've seen as well. We're working on some community events. So what we have going on in the market, we're actually sponsors of bringing musicians to the market every other Friday. And if you haven't been to MECWAN, it's a wonderful thing to do. We're not there sponsoring, like giving you this. It's not a Gentian event, but we want to let you know and be aware of things like that that are happening in the community in a safe place that you might want to get together as well. So, don't come there thinking, hey, we're going to have all the Gentian staff there, the whole team's there. Some of us will be there. We'll circulate in and out, but you can get some food from 6 different vendors. Hear some good music. This one's a bit more of a soul R&B. It's really an interesting group here on this Friday. So I really appreciate those as well. With that, I know I'm a few minutes over. I appreciate that. I wanted to read you another 14-minute poem, but I won't because I didn't write that. But I have this whole hope of writing as well. It's called "The Monsters Awake." At any rate, what I want to do is really end this and see if there's any questions from anyone here. Ken, anyone have any questions, any statements? Ken, Zach, no? Okay, fantastic. Well, what I like to do, we're Gentian here. We plan it, live it, and give it. So we want to give it probably an integral piece of all three. We don't want you to give it to the federal government if you don't have to. We want to make sure you're living it greatly. We want to make sure you plan phenomenally and optimize your planning. That's who we are and what we do. So from our entire team here at Gentian, I just want to say thank you and have a great week. This is, for many of you, it's Passion Week. And Passion Week is a phenomenal week, especially if you're of the Christian religion. This is the week that our Savior has, risen, as you run through and look at. So really, it's a great time to marinate in that piece as well. It's spring where both people are looking at the vaccine. It really is spring of life as well. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate all your time, energy, attention. I really appreciate the extra few minutes today. Let's go have a fantastic next 2 weeks. And with that, be kind, be grateful, and be hopeful. Have a great week.